Okay, it says we are now live. So good evening and welcome to Discussions from the Otherhood. I am your temporary host tonight, Cranston, and with me is Sonia, and we're expecting some other people to show up. But in the meantime, we are going to do our usual. So since there's just two of us, I'll start with you. What's your weather like up there in Rochester?
It's been a bit rainy, but it's clearing up. It's 66 degrees now. Supposed to hit the balmy 80, low 80s during the week. So, woo!
Okay.
How about you?
It has been it's been weird this week. It's been overcast all week, which has been, we finally got some rain today for about a good hot minute. And then that was it. It was enough to leave puddles on the ground, but not enough to get it. But it wasn't hot enough to evaporate it, so you can't tell that it really rained. So it's been comfortable so far. So we're not complaining yet.
Nope.
Hurricane season starts in 2 weeks. But I understand from a friend of mine who lives somewhere in the Panhandle that it's been raining for the last couple of days there. Like animals been gathering up two by two.
Yeah, they keep getting tornado warnings. And
Yeah.
they've discovered that it was three that went through Tallahassee last Friday.
Thing is, you hate to sound like a conspiracy theorist or something like that, but when did tornadoes become such a problem? I mean, it used to be you'd hear about a tornado every once in a while. Now they're coming in like like regular bad weather or something. So when did that happen? Or has anybody said what's causing that?
They're denying it, but we know why. Mother Nature pissed at us because we're ruining her world.
I think it could actually be that. There's one of those little things that pops up on. I got to figure out exactly what the algorithm that's been assigned to me, how it decides what it's going to go after or whatever. But there's this thing that always says like crazy theories that conspiracy theories that turned out to be true. So I hate to think 5 years from now the idea is that they're experimenting with weather control, and it really is that's what's going on. So,
Yeah, we used to joke in Tallahassee that there was a deflector shield around the city because the bad storm would always seem to come right up and then veer away.
hmm
Well, it looks like the tornadoes all ganged up on the magnetic lab because now that the magnetic lab is in pieces, bad weather's been coming straight on in.
yeah.
It's like, oh, wait, maybe they were creating a deflector shield.
Well, there was something for a while that it seems like the hurricanes would miss like Florida, and then they would hit straight up the coast to the Carolinas or like Connecticut or something, and I said,
Yeah.
but when did that start happening? So there is
So,
no telling. Strange times we're living in.
yes, whoever the ancient Chinese mystic who's cursed us, yes, we are definitely living in interesting times.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, anyway, so we will keep going with it. So tonight's topic is something that I'd run across by accident, and I sent it out, and Penelope decided that that was going to be our topic tonight, and it was listing 24 movies that should be rewritten because they are white savior complex movies, and that is
Only 24?
well, yeah, because the thing is, I thought of another one that came up that wasn't listed on that, and then there was one list they had. Somebody put up a sample list, and there was one on the sample list that I said, "Well, that one shouldn't go there." Then I thought again, well, maybe it should. No telling. So anyway, we will see. But the list has been posted. If you didn't get it, whatever, it's posted in the comment section and stuff if you want to go through it. So I guess we can, but we will start out and of course jump in anywhere as we go through this. But it defined the white savior complex as a movie where you have a marginalized group of people. They've either been self marginalized or marginalized by white people, and their problems can only be solved by white people and their own issues are subjugated to the issues of the majority who have, come along and decided this is what we're going to do. Sometimes these things are well intended. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're just tone deaf. So, there is no telling which one is going to be. And it also doesn't even have to be real people or people on this planet or whatever, because one of the movies, I think the first one on the list was one that has received its own comments over the years, and that was, of course, Avatar. Also, the other thing is a lot of these movies date back from the 80s, so that might have something to do with it, and they seem to kind of disappear in the early teens. There are a couple that were in the 2000s, but they're all like kind of in the rearview mirror now too. So we start with the first one on the list, which was Avatar, which was a movie that, in full disclosure, that I did not particularly care for. Yeah, I thought it was well done. It was marvelous. It was, all the money was up on the screen and that kind of thing. But it was just too predictable. And I kind of go along with the people who called it Dances with Aliens, because that's what it was like, and it was kind of like, to me, every beat in the movie, you could tell what was going to happen and stuff, and spoiler alerts for people who haven't seen a 20-year-old movie. But, as soon as you knew that Zoe Saldana wanted to kill Sam Worthington and stuff, you knew they were going to fall in love. You knew that was going to happen. You knew that all of the that this guy was going to be the bad guy, and this guy was going to come in and do this, that, and the other, and everything. And so there were no real surprises. Um, and the thing that kind of doubled down on it was that Sam Worthington's character was, of course, not even supposed to be there, and he had to learn everything. His brother, who had died somewhere along the way because plot, had been trained to do all of this stuff. He came in not knowing how to do any of it, and of course became a master of everything. And the people who had been born to do this thing were, of course, overwhelmed and astounded by his prowess and everything. And he sort of becomes their de facto leader, and this kind of thing. So that's a lot of them are not quite that. Are not quite that uh, on the spot or whatever, or wherever you want to call it and stuff, for what they're doing, but it does make a it does kind of carry that narrative along.
Yeah. I didn't see the movie because I got that feeling from the trailers. And
Hmm.
I was like, I know Cameron comes up with a lot of technical stuff, but I just suffered through the prequels. I don't know if I really want to spend some more time watching this sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, well, it was. I don't know whether it was one of those things where, and this is something that it hasn't come over here in wide release yet, but the reactions to it have been kind of mixed. But Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis, that it has gone from either the more kind. They said it got like a 10-minute standing ovation at Cannes when it appeared, and but a lot of people, a lot of the critics here have said that either it was sort of off the track, or it was something that is kind of dated or whatever. And then they said there's some WTF moments throughout, so we don't know. But I don't know. I don't know. Looking back on it, I don't know if the idea was that they felt that the visuals and everything would be so overwhelming that people would be swept up in that, and they wouldn't look at the rest of it too closely. which I think there could be some of it. I remember that year at the Academy Award, the movie that won Best Picture was Zero Dark 30, which was directed by his ex-wife. And they were calling that Oscars the Revenge, the Wives' Revenge Oscars or something like that. I do think that Zero Dark 30 was probably a better movie, but that's it. But yeah, but let's go into number two on the list here is Green Book, and that was from 2018. So that one is fairly recent. And the Green Book, of course, for those who haven't seen it, we're trying to keep all the spoilers to the minimum. There's a story about a black concert pianist who has to perform in the South, and the only way he can get through is by hiring a white driver to take him around. And the movie, despite in addition to some of the family members complaining that they took liberties with the story, like minimizing their input and sort of misrepresenting their relative in the movie, but it seems to focus more on the journey that the driver takes in confronting and overcoming his own prejudices than than what his journey is really all about.
Mhm. I had just seen a documentary. Oops, hit the wrong button. I just seen a documentary about the pianist, and I was like, you know, what I'm seeing of the movie doesn't quite match up with what I just learned over here on this documentary.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're
That was
like everybody points out how he had to teach him how to eat fried chicken and watermelon. I was like, his family was like, but he was an accomplished cook.
mm-hmm.
Of course, he knew about fried chicken and watermelon.
Well, that's the thing I was going to say about movies that are based on a true story that are always like wait for it, and then you said what, and then you could put a disclaimer that says uh, there some characters have been combined or created.
Mhm.
Some conversations did not take place, or events are put out of order. But the rest of it is true. So I think the best thing is the card they put up before Bush Cassidy and the Sundance Kid started running, where it just said, "What follows is mostly true." So there's always, and there are some things that are done to make a point. Some things are done to because it just fits better or something like that. There was a thing with Christopher Nolan was saying that some of the conversations between Oppenheimer and Einstein did not take place exactly the way they did or when they did, but he decided to give himself a pass on it because it helped with the flow of the movie and everything. So if you do that and you're honest enough to say, yeah, I know I'm kind of pushing it with this, but I'm gonna take it along and stuff, it goes with that. But before we continue with the list, the question we should ask ourselves, they mentioned, is why do you think that the white savior complex is so popular and appears so often? And it appears the same way, the same beats, the same time. And despite the criticisms that come out about some of the things that come up, that they still do it.
Because they had the control of the entertainment industry.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't feel obligated to represent everyone. My mom used to tease because they weren't mentioned in the Bible.
Yeah, well,
And she's the first person that pointed out to me there's not a single white person in the Bible.
yeah, that is well until they said, but but they meant them to be there and everything.
Yeah, they all point to Paul. It's like, no, Paul's not white.
Well, there is a kind of a thing that comes up, and then again, and it could be because we're in these separate echo chambers, and every time you present something that doesn't go along with the context, is that they say, well, it's just not true, and they just dismiss it. So it could be the fact that when they point out the fact that these people all lived like in the Middle East, in the desert. They were not blondes. They were not, did not have blue eyes and stuff. They
Jesus
even
was not a surfer boy.
yeah, they even mentioned that in the Last Supper, which is of course that's what the people in the Bible all look like. Um, they mentioned that Da Vinci was using his relatives, his neighbors, friends, anybody who said, "You want to be in my picture?" Come on, get in here.
Yeah. And
And
the only black person pictured is Judas.
yeah, and so there is that going along with the fact that you look back and said, well, was anything that we were taught when we were growing up at all true or accurate or whatever and everything? So
They're even discovering that a lot of the Greek statues were people of color. The paint just peeled, eroded off over time.
yeah. And the other thing is, of course, you see the explanations for it because when they were pointing out the fact that in the paintings in the pharaoh's tombs, that all of the royals were painted um, as darker individuals, and all of the servants were lighter individuals. And the explanation for that was, well, when they got around to painting the dark people, they were running out of paint, so that's how come they came out that color. So. But number three on our list is the help. Now, the help is kind of a controversial kind of thing because of it's not so much that it was about how the people that were being helped were being given so much. Uh, their stories was so predominant, but they were saying, as Penelope pointed out, that the behavior of a lot of the black people in the movie were not kind of things that real black people would do, because a real black person, before doing these things, no matter how upset they were, would think about the repercussions of what they were doing, and they would say, well, no, I better think of some other way to get even with this person in doing that.
Yeah, I think the closest one for the time period I remember seeing is the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman. He
Hmm.
did small little resistance,
Hmm.
taking great satisfaction because you knew they would clap back on the rest of the community.
Yeah. And also something I've been looking at these in the wake of the Good Times reboot, which if you haven't seen that, I can tell you you might want to see it just if you want to have something to be angry about, or if you want to believe they did what. But they were saying that in on the real shows that there was a common theme, it seemed, in all of these shows, and in every one of these shows back from the day, from like That's My Mama and Good Times and the Jeffersons and so on, that every one of these shows had a common thread, is that the black actors on the show went to the producers to complain about the way the characters were being depicted or developed, and they listened to what they had to say, and they just ignored it. They just say, yeah, this is what we're going to do. And if they persisted in saying, well, we need to change this, they were either fired or they were just written out, or their parts were diminished to do whatever they wanted to do as a and to because that was their opinion. And so, on the one hand, it is my show, and I'm the producer and everything. But on the other hand, I should listen to the people that I'm representing to hear about what they're doing. And so the question is, and the thing that most of them would always say is, if a black character did this, this, and this, it wouldn't the white audience would not approve it. So are they
Yeah.
making these shows to entertain white folks with their idea of what they thought black people were really like, or do they sincerely think that like they used to blame everything on the South? Well, they won't like this in the South if we did A,
And
B,
in
and
the
C.
Midwest, yeah.
Yeah,
This won't go in the Bible Belt.
yeah.
Yeah. Chadwick Boseman and Michael B. Jordan share a similar story. Chadwick actually initiated the role that Michael later took on in All My Children. And
Hmm.
when he brought up his concerns, they faded it out, fired
Hmm.
him, brought in Michael B. Jordan, and then instituted all the changes he recommended.
Hmm. Yeah, sometimes it's like that scene and because it went right under my head. But Robert Townsend's movie about acting and everything, and when
Hollywood
he
Shuffle.
Hollywood Shuffle, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And when he had refused to do something, this other guy said, "I'll do it," just like that. So Unfortunately, there are some people that, for whatever reason, ego, paycheck, they need to get their roof fixed or something like that, that they will go ahead and do whatever it is because the check is going to clear and stuff like that, and then and it's a credit.
Yeah.
Um,
Last
but
scene of American Fiction. For those
yeah,
who haven't seen it yet, it's now
mhm.
streaming, by the way, on Amazon Prime.
Okay. So if anybody you haven't seen it, see it. It was deserving of all the accolades that it got and more.
Yes.
Okay, the third one on our list is Freedom Riders, and this is from '07. And they said it was a movie, but it didn't strike the right tone when developing the characters. The film tries to put the focus on minority students, but the movie still paints Hilary Swank's character as the catalyst for these students to find their drives and passions. She teaches them all about themselves through her lessons and inspires them to reach their full potential. So it's kind of like that you never said, I can be more than this and stuff until somebody tells you, yes, you can. So,
Well, it kind of fits though because the majority of the teachers at the time, if I'm remembering correctly,
hmm
were Caucasian. So there weren't that many other role models in the community in the
hmm
industry in that field. So I
now,
see it's I see the point, but yeah, it's
now
frustrating.
it's in another city and it's different things. You know what it is, but I can remember that even though I was in school in the mid '60s through the early '70s, and they still had a lot of segregation. They didn't start integrating schools despite Brown versus Board of Education, which was '56, I think. They didn't start making a real effort to integrate the schools until 1970. And it was so we had schools that had all black staffs, and all the teachers were like highly qualified for what they were doing, and they always pushed us to do things to made us want to do things better. And so the idea that somebody had to come along and that wasn't an idea that wasn't pushed in your neighborhood or your family did not want you to do well is not really true. Now maybe it was just a southern thing or something like that, or maybe this was just one particular place that it happened and it might have been true. But then again, you never know because you never got an alternative. They said, well, this is the way
Right.
it is, and that's it.
Don't know if they were thorough in their research.
Yeah. Or their research consisted of, well, what do you think about this? And of course, if you talk to people who are going to agree with what you do, and you're in a place where the idea of the elevator pitch is the only business, I think Hollywood's the only business that makes sense, where you're going to spend several $1 million on something that you can sum up in two sentences in the time it takes you to get from the third floor to the seventh floor. And so that could have something to do with it. Now, the next one on the list is from 2009, and it's probably the most problematic one on the list because it was a big hit when it came out. And then one of the subjects of the movie began to say, well, it really wasn't like that, and I'm not really like that. And that's The Blind Side. And the elevator pitch again is the story that this well-to-do family in somewhere in the South, I think they were in Alabama, I think, or somewhere in the South,
Yeah.
had found this black guy who in the movie was living on the street and trying to get through school and having all sorts of problems. And they adopted him, brought him into the family, made him one of their own. And through their nurturing and encouragement, he ends up becoming a professional football player. Now, the real Michael Orr that the character was based on says, I wasn't like illiterate. I wasn't, that bad off and everything like that. They did do a lot of help, but it wasn't like, I was as much of a charity case as the movie depicts me to be. And there's a sort of a he said, they said thing going on that there are like counter suits and everything where the family is saying that they don't understand why he was upset with them because of what the movie did, even though they did not come out and take his part exactly. So,
Yeah,
and
that
they,
he's saying that they didn't adopt him. They he basically signed all over rights to his name and his image and all that to them.
Yeah. And they were saying the entire movie implies that Orr would either be in jail or dead if it weren't for his white rescuers. To fix this, we need to rewrite the whole script, making every character more authentic and shifting the focus to Orr. And it's illustrated with a picture of him sitting here quietly as Sandra Bullock is reading to him, along with a kid that has to be like middle school or something like that. So it kind of says that, oh, he thinks this is a good story too, or that maybe he can't read anything that has
Big
multi
word,
words in it or something.
big
So
words. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, so that one is one that. So I think the only person that was blindsided was he seems to have been, or seems to have been blindsided by how they represented him, But that's something that happens all the time with, it seems, with black characters in these things. The next one on there is from 1995, Dangerous Minds. And they said the white teacher saving troubled black students is all too familiar in Hollywood. In this movie, Michelle Pfeiffer's character is the only hope for her students to find their way. The movie shows white characters as mannerly and thoughtful, while minority characters are rage-filled, stubborn thugs. And so this is the other thing that always happens, that black characters are um, always depicted as people who don't have any higher aspirations. They don't have any what we call home training and stuff. And it isn't until somebody tells them that you can do better than this that they reluctantly find the light. And that's not exactly true. That the one thing that you knew growing up is that your parents always told you how to act in public, and you did not violate that. Even though they wouldn't be there to see it, they would still know about it somehow. And if somebody
Hmm.
told them about it and stuff, they would say, you can't call DCF but break your fingers and stuff. So
I think people like to believe that as noble as the teaching profession is, nobody can succeed without a good teacher in their corner.
hmm
And since the majority of the teachers are Caucasian, figures that you would have a Caucasian role model pulling you up. But it's not necessarily. I went to a parochial school and I can remember at least three teachers who were really in my corner
hmm
and encouraged me because I would always come out top on the testing stuff. And then the next two were two guys, and they are like, "Don't ever lower yourself just to please a man," type.
hmm
And that reinforced what I was taught at home.
yeah.
So yeah,
Now
weird.
that now something that is kind of that way, but then it's not. And I was thinking, well, if they made that into a movie, how would they do it? Is that they when they finally decided they were going to integrate the school system, and this was the reality of how this happened. They did it with the teaching staff first, and they did it punitively because some of the teachers, they told them that we're going to go to a school that's predominantly black in a predominantly black area of town, and a lot of the teachers just quit. And so that was, if there was somebody that you wanted to get rid of, that was a good way to do it. A lot of the teachers that they did go, that they did get, the ones who were just out of school,
Yeah.
and they just wanted a job, and so they would go anywhere. And they had no experience. They were afraid. The big thing that they would do is somebody would bring in a saucer from the cafeteria and throw it at the blackboard, and the teachers would see the room and stuff, and they wouldn't come back for the rest of the period. But some of the teachers we got were teachers who actually volunteered to go to these schools, and they expected us to do the work and everything like that, and they didn't do it in a patronizing way or something like that. And there was no problem with it. We didn't have that kind of drama. So you would think that somewhere they would have gotten somebody who actually went through a system like that to say, okay, well, this is what happened. This is how we handle these kind of things. But instead of making it into that every day was a gang fight somewhere, that they had to stop and do that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
okay, now the next one on our I think it's probably one of the earliest ones, goes back to 1962, and that's To Kill a Mockingbird, which
Ooh.
both the book and the movie are considered like classics and everything like that, and generally get high marks for what they did. And so they say here, To Kill a Mockingbird was ahead of its time and focused viewers to question their biases. But analyzing over 60 years after its release, some unsavory themes jump at us. Atticus Finch is a commendable character, but maybe too righteous and too preachy. And I read something, and it said in an evaluation, they did think that his character was a little too good to be true. And they say Finch's intentions seem pure, making him the more obvious hero in the story. But he's been blueprint for many white liberals ever since, leading these white people to think they are heroes in the black people's stories around them. Finch's actions show basic human decency and fairness, which aren't enough to crown him as the hero of the black community. So that's when it is kind of that this is somebody who's doing something out of principle, but it seems like again, it's his story and not the story of the guy he's trying to defend.
Right. Should actually be the story of the little girl watching him model the good behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not. Well,
Yeah. Okay, so our next one is a more recent one. Oh my God, and that was '08, so that's almost 15 years ago now. But that's Gran Torino, which was directed by Clint Eastwood, who is considered one of Hollywood's better directors. Actors seem to like him for what he does. But it said it's again. They said it's a story of we have a racist white lead character who is the hero simply because he manages to put his prejudices aside. To further the issues with this movie, it uses racial slurs in a humorous context and enforces harmful stereotypes. Clint Eastwood's character plays the classic white savior who, though tackling his racist demons, saves the person of color. And they said that even some of the actors in the movie, probably the black ones, have spoken out about the movie's tone-deaf approach to racism. And so again, it's another movie where the guy it's not so much the journey that's taken, isn't so much the journey of the people who are affected by what the issue is, but it's somebody who comes in and decides for whatever reason they're going to straighten things out.
I need to watch some of these films again.
Yeah.
I haven't done deep analysis on some of them. Some of them you just take it and you go, eh.
Yeah.
So
well, yeah, but
and
some
they
of them,
can't really understand why aren't you more praiseworthy of it and all that, because it's nah.
mm-hmm. Well, it's also the reason why when sometimes when people recommend movies to you, if you've been burned by them before, you just said, yeah, right, okay. Now this is one that's fairly recent. That's going to be that kind of goes both ways, and that's Django Unchained, which is of course, and you could say because it's
Tarantino.
a Tarantino movie, and so you don't know whether Tarantino figures that he's an honorary black person, so anything that he says or does can you accept it because it's Tarantino. He does do some things that are commendable, like when he did Jackie Brown, because he was a fan of Pam Grier. He was hoping it would
Yes.
do a revival for her career that it did for with John Travolta, and it didn't really quite help for whatever reason. And but that could be another whole thing about that sometimes the reason people don't like movies with black leads is because they're movies with black leads. But for Django, it says Django Unchained is one of the tougher movies to talk about here. The movie does more for the black perspective than other films, but not enough. The film still props up the white characters as saviors with shiny halos. Django's freedom and safety are in the hands of a racist white man. The white character checks all the white savior boxes as he rescues the black character, turns against the white characters to do so, and sacrifices himself for them in the end. This martyrdom does more to praise white people for being decent than acknowledge the self-saving actions of the black characters. If we rewrote this movie, King Schultz's role would be drastically minimized, if not somehow eliminated. Now, I don't know if Django could get around in, pre-Civil War. So I don't know if it was a pre-Civil War, right after Civil War, somewhere back then. Um, if you didn't navigate it on his own, because no matter how righteous or whatever you were, you didn't quite have that total unfettered agency. So yeah, and but I'm trying to figure out now. When I watched the movie, I looked at the character that represented him as being somewhat more of a companion than a savior, or something like that. Um, and I think that he just probably did not like a lot of the white characters because they were just bad people, and you just have to say, "Well, these are the people I want to be on this side of history when this comes along."
Mhm.
But then again, it could be that yeah, maybe his popping up sometimes and stuff to help people out, just to be a little bit too convenient. So
Again, I haven't seen it enough to analyze it. The language was too harsh for me at the
hmm
time, so I couldn't get past the language to actually sit down and analyze it.
yeah, that's
So
the other thing, of course, about Tarantino movies and stuff. They should and they don't do that for movies. They should some adult language. So, yeah, there's a lot of it. So
yeah, I used to analyze movies a lot more than I do now. Now I have to watch it once for the story and another time for the analysis. And there's
mhm.
just there after COVID, there just doesn't seem to be enough time to do all that.
Oh yeah. Now this on the list is from 97. I'm gonna say unapologetically takes on the white savior trope. Matthew McConaughey's character Stephen.
Ah, we lost Cranston. Comcast got mad at Cranston for talking out. Let's see if he can get himself back in. Hold on one moment. Let me see if I can reach him and let him know that Comcast bounced him out again. He probably is just figuring that out now. Hold on while we pause for technical difficulties. Because he's got the controls. Come on, internet gods. Please bring back Cranston. Sorry, everybody. There's been a lot of storms hitting North Florida, and I have a feeling they just attacked a substation near Cranston. Even though he said it was quite beautiful tonight. Feeling one just got a little overtaxed. And if I wish I had the list, I can't find my copy of the list. Let me see if I can find it again. Oh boy. I know somewhere on that list there was a mention of hidden colors. There was a lot of things that didn't happen with hidden colors that they said happened. Let's see if I can find his list again. Oh, nope, because that one has Blindside as number one. That's not it. My computer's acting up now, too. I apologize if we lose you all. We will be back as soon as we can. Let me see if Cranston makes it back in. Well, I found an NBC article. Ah, my friend has supplied me with a list. Yay! My trusty assistant. On here, there's Finding Forrester um, from 2000. A black teen boy named Jamal is dared to sneak in the house of a reclusive writer, William. Jamal leaves his backpack behind, and William goes through and make notes on his writing and returns to backpack. They form a mentor-mentee relationship, especially which is ridiculous. Other than Jamal, when Jamal is repeatedly accused of plagiarism because his writing has improved. It eventually culminates when William reading an essay in front of the school to wild applause and then realized that, surprise, surprise, it was written by Jamal. There's the help. The Soloist. When a journalist just happens to hear a skilled violinist played by Nathaniel, played by Jamie Foxx, is homeless and schizophrenic. But thankfully, Steve's there to imply that writing such. Let me see if Cranston's trying to get back in. He should be able to get in without me. Nope, no sign of Cranston yet. Yes, there's the avatar that we have previously spoken about. There he is.
Okay, I'm back.
Podcast
Yeah.
put you back.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So I heard you talking about the soloist.
Yes. I was just reading the description. I was like, I think I'm glad I missed that one, even though it has two of my favorite actors.
Yeah, it was a kind of and it was, again it was this sort of thing where that it was and this is the thing that was interesting, that Jamie Foxx's character had some sort of medical uh, condition that probably could have been corrected with proper medication or something. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's it. But of course, whatever reason, he doesn't want to take medication, blah blah blah, stuff like that. And and he gets helped out by by the and actually and I think the character, and there was another thing is, I believe the character that Robert Downey Jr. played was actually Hispanic, and Robert Downey Jr. isn't. So, but I guess that makes him like white adjacent, so that makes
Yeah.
him, kind of a savior too. But again, the fact that that again, it was kind of like this guy just happened to be out on the street playing and stuff, and waiting for him to come along and save him and everything, and that the people in his life who are black and stuff can't seem to do anything, or doesn't occur to them, or they give up too soon or something like that, and that's what helps them along. So
Yes, this that Kim found for me on Flavor Wire is really interesting. They group a lot of the same type of stuff together. So there's a category they have called the educator,
mm-hmm.
and they include with freedom writers, they include the Ron Clark story, Conrack, and the principal.
Mm-hmm.
Because heaven forbid you actually talk about uh, Morgan Freeman and
Lean on me.
yeah, and Edward James Olmos with the Latino community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's see. Did you get through? No, nothing on the list. This is from 2013. Was 12 Years a Slave.
Yeah, I got burnt out on slave narrative. I
Yeah.
want to read. I would rather read an transcript of an oral history than read Hollywood's interpretation of slavery again.
Yeah. Now, nothing on the list is 42, which was Chadwick Boseman. And of course, in everything he did, he was really good. And even as I was sitting there in the theater watching it, I kept saying, "Okay, I like Harrison Ford." And I realized that he played the guy who owned the team, who's to make sure he was going to put uh, Jackie Robinson on it. But he was the one that was essentially he was telling Jackie Robinson what he needed to do. That you can't get angry if they do something to you. You can't speak back. You can't do this. You can't do that, and everything. And I'm thinking, well, is that really accurate and stuff, or is
I
somebody?
think his mama would have told him about that a long time ago.
Yeah. And there was a lot of things that came out that Jackie Robinson acted as a mentor to other black players coming into the league when they were facing some of the things that he did or whatever. So even there watching that, I was saying, well, but of course, if you've got Harrison Ford in a movie, you got to give him something to do, and so it's kind of skewed that way and everything. But that was yeah, okay. Now, this one that it was supposed to be a comedy, and it's things you think about. And then there was one scene that I thought was that I still think is hilarious, mainly because I don't like cold weather. But this is Cool Runnings, and it was a story about a. Another thing about it is that a lot of these people that become these saviors are people who are either burnouts or they've been turned away from everything else, so they can't do anything with their own people again. So they come and
Yeah.
say, "We're going to do this with you." So John Candy played this sort of like disgraced bobsled coach, and he takes this job to train this Jamaican bobsled team. And it's one scene in the movie, the first when they get to New York, where the Olympics is being held, and they're walking out of the airport, and he's walking and talking to them. The door opens, and you hear the wind howling, and the snow is blowing outside. And he suddenly realizes that nobody's behind him. He turns around, and all the Jamaicans are standing inside, holding together, looking horrified at all of this snow outside and everything. So yeah, I can see where they may not have been, like snow, but I'm pretty sure they were familiar with the concept.
Yeah, there's at the very top of some of the mountains where coffee is grown.
Hmm.
It snows. It doesn't go all the way down. It just stays up on the peaks. But there's a
Yeah.
little bit of snow in Jamaica. They would have at least known what it is, and you would have hopefully bought them enough parkas and other cold gear that they wouldn't be that terrified.
Yeah, and if
These are
you
men who probably survived hurricanes. Come on.
if you are the coach, the first thing you're going to do is tell your the athletes you're training. Well, okay, well this you might not be used to this, but this is what you're going to have to look forward to, or something like that. It could be because they felt this is a comedy that they're going to play all of these things up for comic effects, but if you turn the characters into stereotypes or play on stereotypes, that's not really doing them or the story any favors or anything like that. Now,
Listen, this list has it listed as number one as
wow.
their most egregious. The one on Flavor Wire.
Hmm. There are
Um,
some that are probably ahead of that one, I would think. Now, another one is, and this is one that does a kind of a disservice, but for another reason, and this is fairly recent, and this is The Greatest Showman. And part of it could be because if the actors in these movies are people that you like, you're not going to show them in a bad light, even though it's not you should show kind of a warts and all depiction. But The Greatest Showman was the story of P.T. Barnum and about how he had carved out this niche of this presentation, of this thing, even though it was something that took advantage of people who had physical deformities or medical issues or something like that, and whose working motto was "There's a sucker born every minute." And they said that the great showman relies on the white savior trope to make the lead character likable, and he's not the only one to act as a hero toward minority characters. While we get glimpses of the minority perspective, most of the movie follows the white man's narrative and how wonderful they are for accepting minorities. A scene or two addresses Barnum's performative and shallow acceptance, but by the end, all the minority characters are thanking him. Um, The only path we see to redemption for the great showman is to take the narrative away from Barnum or to give him a more honest depiction of his abuse.
He, they were thanking him. I remember, okay, this one I remember seeing quite. In fact, it's what I got it for Christmas because I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
They were thanking him more for making them a family because they were all separate people in the little islands out in the world of hate. And he brought them for whatever reason, and they admitted he was a greedy little thing. He brought them together so that they could be a family, so they didn't feel so alone. So that one's and he didn't really rescue anybody. He was flat out. I think we can make money, and we can make those people who laughed at you pay.
Yeah, now that's the kind of thing. Say yes. So the reason I'll do that is the only difference is going to be we're going to charge them money to make fun of you. So
right,
so yeah, and that's
you're gonna be laughing all the way to the bank.
Yeah, and that kind of thing is a hard sell to kind of make that. Yeah, okay, so yeah, like
Yeah,
that.
the one time they did show him kind of vulnerable, it was a Caucasian woman who took him to the ringers. And I'm not too sure about that. I think history tells that he kind of used her too. So
yeah,
that one's borderline.
Yeah. Now this is one that could be. It is good in one point. They do make a couple of minor points at the end that kind of do that, and they do spend a lot of time showing the life that the characters had away from the main story and how they took it upon themselves to do some things and stuff. But again, it does have some things that are a little different and stuff, and that's Hidden Figures from 2016. And so the movie depicts the women well, showing their brilliance and innovation, but not their courage or steadfastness. The worst example of this is white savior in the movie is when white male boss is saving the black female employee from by allowing her to use the conveniently located white-only bathrooms. The narrative here isn't great, but it becomes unacceptable when you know the real Johnson used the white-only bathrooms without having to ask for permission or hesitating.
Yeah.
Now, it is true, but there are some things where I think when Janelle Monáe's character is taking the class and she's the only black in the class and they don't want her there, that she says, well, I'm going to be here. You're not going to make me leave. And she goes through. And when, I should know her name, but Olivia Urquhart, the other character, teaches herself how to use the computer and figures everything out. So they do show the characters in some of the places taking the initiative to do things on their own without that. And it could be, if you want to squint hard and say you're going to try to turn it in a positive light, that some of the things like the bathroom scene and that sort of thing was done to show how bad things were back in the day, and how not all of us were like that. So some of us were there to help out or something like that. That could have been the intent, and that could have been, the way to do it and stuff. So you have to say, well, okay with that one and stuff. But I would have to I would kind of give Hidden Figures a pass because I think they did a good job of showing things that the characters had to do to overcome that all the troubles they had and everything. But it could have been that they could have softened things a little bit and made it a little less that I have to come in with a crowbar and then pry the whites only sign off of the bathroom or something like that.
And he was just being pragmatic. I can't have her wasting time running all over the place when I need her in control to help take care of these astronauts.
So that could have been it too. So we'll see by that. Now the next one is going to be problematic on a whole lot of levels. It was actually the same year as two of the others, and this one is The Legend of Tarzan from 2016. And this was where we had a Tarzan played by one of the Skarsgårds and stuff. Not the one that lived in the sewer, but one who was on True Blood and everything. And they made this Tarzan closer, a little closer to the book, where he was educated, and he comes back because it's part of his inheritance, and he goes back to do whatever it is he does. But they have him wearing pants instead of a loincloth, which I think is a little more practical and stuff. You're going to be swinging on trees and grabbing vines and all that kinds of stuff. But it says. The Legend of Tarzan seems to embrace it. At the film's end, Tarzan frees the black slaves, unites the tribes, and saves the Congo. So that's a lot to do in 2 hours. The They said that the movie simultaneously holds up Tarzan as a white savior while giving the viewer a remedial history of the oppression of black people. It's like they think acknowledging the oppression makes the movie progressive despite the rest of the narrative. We'd love to rewrite this movie in maybe all Tarzan movies to show Tarzan as the one who needs help.
Yeah, but that was, that's right up there with what's his name uh doing Lovecraft. There wasn't that much respect because we were a dark continent.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they don't know what they're doing, forgetting that the Greek had already sent. That's where the Greek would send all their scholars to learn.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, we had to be educated. That goes along with the view of the church,
Mm-hmm.
the view that the church had about us. So, you got to teach those heathens and show them who's boss.
Yeah. Or something like that. Like it's like being civilized and getting together. Why can't we do that? And also the thing is that there were enough instances of people who revolted against the people who had colonized them. That it wasn't like they you had to tell them to do this. This is something we already thought of.
Oh, yeah, that was 1926 or 62.
Which one? This one?
Tarzan, yeah, that Tarzan.
That was 2016 for that one.
Ooh, that was the one with Highlander. I just forgot his name.
Yeah, but it also has
Christopher Lambert.
Yeah, that was the early one. Yeah, but
Yeah.
Which was more the traditional one and stuff. But also the thing is, it's a Tarzan movie, so yeah, there's a lot coming into that already. Okay, the next on the list is 2012 is Lincoln, and uh, this one is different. They said, particularly because Lincoln did do a lot to help Black Americans, and it aims to be historically accurate. It paints Lincoln as a righteous man fighting tirelessly for justice. The reality is a little different, as Lincoln had a hidden history of violence toward other minorities. The movie strongly supports the imaginative version of Lincoln, which many of us have been taught, using Black characters as mere props and inspiring reminders for the main white characters. Rewriting this film to drop the white savior trope would involve an earnest and controversial dive into the real Lincoln, which many people would reject.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they don't talk about a lot is that Lincoln, early in his career, he had said, one of his famous things was he said that if I could, my main thing here is to save the country. If I could save the country by getting rid of slavery, I would do it. If I could save it by keeping slavery, I would do it. If I could do it by keeping some slavery and other slavery, I would do it. But that's the main thing I want to do is save the country. And as late as August, before he issued the Emancipation Proclamation, he had talked to a group of Black leaders to saying that, maybe you guys would be happier somewhere else and stuff.
Yeah.
He had actually proposed shipping all of the Black people either to the Caribbean or back to Africa to make things better. And of course, the Emancipation Proclamation only freed slaves in places that had seceded from the Union.
Yeah, they weren't even part of the United States, so he couldn't issue laws to them.
Yeah. So although he did do a lot of things, and he was instrumental in doing some things, but it wasn't exactly that was something that he had carried along the way the whole time and everything. So
I think a lot of people would freak out if they knew the actual history of some of our presidents.
yeah, and one of the things that mentioned, they were saying that some of his some of the generals had more were much more geared toward freeing slaves than Lincoln was. Some of them only wanted to do it for the practical reason, like um,
There's
uh,
more about them than of us.
yeah, well, like Sherman was who came up with the who was credited with the 40 acres and the mule thing, although that was never really a policy. It was a field order that he had issued because he didn't want to have to take care. The slaves knew that once they've been freed, they were going to get re-enslaved if they stayed where they were. So that's why they were following him around, and he only did that because A, he wanted to punish the Confederacy because he thought that they were traitors and they deserved it. And B, he didn't want to be responsible for all of these people following him around. And when other members of the generals had issued similar things to what he was doing, Lincoln was not happy with that at all. So yeah, so that would be a little bit different, everything. So if we did it again. Next on the list is 1999, The Matrix. And it said, while many white savior movies are glaringly obvious in their lack of self-awareness, we want to highlight some of the more subtle white savior narratives. The Matrix is an excellent example of a white savior movie we often forgive because the racial issues are not at the forefront of the film. But Neo, the white hero, being the only one who can save the minority characters in need of help, is a blatantly white saviorism. The black characters seem expendable and are in awe of Neo, who they plead with to rescue them. Recasting the movie with minority actors is one solution, but another is to rewrite the black characters as more than just supportive characters of the white savior. Now, there are two things about that. One
I can
is,
think of one immediately.
yeah, okay, what's yours?
Will Smith was the original choice for Neo.
Yeah, so that would have pretty much taken care of everything with that and everything. But then, if you had other major black characters and a black lead, then does that turn it into a black movie? It'll still be just as cool and everything,
Yeah.
But would Will Smith put his, Will Smith spin on it or something like that? If he did that, um, and um, and I think the other movies kind of address some of those issues where we find out, spoiler alert for 30-year-old movies, that Neo, this Neo wasn't the first time they had tried Neo as being the savior, that all the other ones had failed. And this was the first one that worked. And so, in a sense, you could say that the minority characters kind of knew that when maybe this one will work, and so they were really employing him rather. They were not employing him to be their savior since he had failed numerous times before. So that one is a little tricky and stuff.
Yeah. And wasn't the original script? I know the Wachowski siblings took credit for it, but wasn't there a lawsuit that the original script was written by a black woman?
There was that long-standing lawsuit, but it was, in anything like that, it goes to the Writers Guild of America, who will review the claims and decide on whether or not it was it or ever. And whatever court they took it to, they did not side that they had plagiarized anything that she had done, that it had violated her intellectual property. And her script, if you ever read her version of the script, would have required substantial rewriting to be filmable. It was just it was not a very good script and was not very well done. So it was one of those things where anything you do, there are some things that were a lot closer to somebody copying somebody else's intellectual property, but this one was not one of them. So okay, the next one on our list is The Principal. which is a white teacher who rescues a bunch of inner city minority students. A white screenwriter and a white director came together to show the idea of inner city schools and persons of color experience, two things they seem to know absolutely nothing about. Um, they say the white saviorism here is plentiful, and the best way to redeem the story would be to remove the white savior characters um, altogether.
Yeah. The article that I found says, um, for whatever reason, in the principal, for example, James Belushi's character is sent to a school full of minority students as a punishment.
Hmm.
So, yeah, about that.
Well, like I said, that was something that they actually did here. That we got a lot of teachers who either were inexperienced and so they just needed a job, they didn't care where the job was, or it was as punishment for teachers that they wanted to force into retirement, or they said, you've requested construction paper one time too many. So
Yeah. Like Penelope's comment, she wrote, and by the way, Keanu Reeves is Asian. it's, it's true. Point
yeah,
number 3.
that's we put them up to. I'm Penelope. Can you unmute yourself or
I'm listening. I'm muting,
Oh,
eating,
okay,
watching
yeah,
the
that's what we're
game.
okay. Welcome, welcome.
Yep.
I like that. Yeah, she's right about that. He is Asian.
Yeah,
So
because
there
I think
goes
they're
their
Yeah,
arguments.
yeah. Well, you know what? And in fact, what Otto was saying is that it kind of undermines the rest of their arguments when they're not, when they haven't done the basic research or something like that by just calling out the Matrix. Especially when, like you were saying first, Will Smith was the original choice for the role and
yeah.
didn't take it.
Hmm.
So it didn't have anything to do with that. It wasn't a white savior film. It was just,
Hmm.
a film.
Yeah, yeah. Because that was when I had problems. When there was another one that wasn't on this list, was on another list. I thought I'll get to when we get through these. The next one on the list is Radio from '03, and it said,
Wow.
yeah. Well, that was one of those things that I decided, yeah, I think I want to see this no matter what. And they have a picture here of
Cuba
of
Gooding.
Cuba Gooding Jr., which looks really bad. That's him. So I can say, yeah, I'm kind of glad I kind of missed this one. And they say to fix this movie, we have to start by editing out all of the harmful stereotypes, which might leave us with 20 minutes of content.
Huh,
I don't
I'm gonna
even
tell you
remember
though,
that movie.
but
Jeez.
you have to, I don't really either, but you have to look at it. A lot of these guys think that that's like the key to them, making their run for an Oscar or something, to play that type of role. I guess you figured, Forrest Gump, right? So,
Okay, now there's another one on the list and this is, and it's us. This was from 1984, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
oh, that is a horrible
Oh,
film. I mean,
Uh,
I don't know if you call it white savior, but it sure is racist.
yeah. Um, and it said his character is even painted as an angel because he chose not to steal artifacts from these communities. We believe this movie could be rectified, but with a lot of editing, Indy needs to get off his high horse of privilege, and Spielberg needs to literally any basic research on other cultures so we can ditch these ridiculous and dangerous stereotypes.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, the way they had those Indian people acting was like minstrel level. I mean, it was so horrible. It was so absurd and, just extreme. It just horrible. Just horrible.
I don't remember who wrote the script for that. I don't think it was Spielberg.
I don't
Uh,
know. And then it didn't help that he had his wife at the time in that role. She was horrible.
She wasn't his wife when they did it.
but she
That's
was
where
on
they
the list.
met.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
just know that she was his wife at the time that I saw it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Um,
a lot of
but
things
it
that
was
were
quite terrible.
problematic about that, and the thing I guess they did was they had, yeah, it did have a lot of stereotypes and things that they thought were cute, but
I
You
mean,
see,
I just like, think that how interesting it was that the little boy who played in that role as, I guess, I don't know what you want to call him,
the
the ghost
sidekick.
or whatever,
Yeah.
that he finally gets his Oscar and, everything, everywhere all at once.
hmm
I thought that was
Yeah.
beautifully neat.
Lucas didn't. Spielberg didn't write it. It was George Lucas and two others wrote it.
It was
That
quite
explains a
terrible.
lot.
Well, from the
Quite
man who
terrible.
brought you Jar Jar Binks, Indiana Jones, and the Temple of Doom, so
Mm.
Hey, he's made up for his tastes. He's
Well, people evolve,
yeah,
and
yeah.
people have the right to evolve. But I mean, other people write things that are bad, and they never see the light of day. So it
Yep.
would have been very easy to get somebody into the writer's room to fix that. They
hmm
just didn't. I mean, the
yep,
director could have easily said, "This is not working.
hmm
What are you doing with the script? Go fix it.
yep,
Get somebody in, a ghost, whatever you want to call it, but you need to fix the script. We can't. It's unshootable." But by the same token, we don't know whether it was the opposite. Whether the
hmm
writers came to them with a good script, and the director said, "Oh no, that's not. You got to punch it up, punch it up."
hmm
Yep.
These people to be more savage, more whatever. So you never know, until we're in the back room
yeah.
of what it was that actually happened, with that script. They may come with a lovely script,
The
Yeah.
but
other two writers were credited with Howard the Duck.
Well,
which
that explains
that
much.
is so bad. But I mean, it's bad source material and a bad film.
But the other thing is, and this is the really sad and fighting thing is, what if the script they presented was the better version of the script?
Yeah, yeah, in that sense, really bad. But are people? I guess who is it that we want to have control over what it is that we see on the screen? You know,
Yeah. Now the next one we get on is from '06 is Blood Diamond, which
I have never seen it, so I can't comment on it because I've never seen it.
but it says that they said that the black characters are depicted in the worst part. They're either villains or victims, while DiCaprio plays a character who falls in the middle. This narrative is particularly horrible because it manages to dehumanize, villainize, and infantilize an entire race of people all at once. Frankly, rewriting this movie to drop the white savior narrative would be easy. You just have to develop the black characters to be actual characters and not just background people.
Hmm. Well, that's probably about right.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a lot of problem with that, with black people being cardboard cutouts.
hmm
Only existing as foil characters, to elevate whoever it is the star is that they put into the film, who by and large is probably not going to be a black person. And I think that that probably is what they found to be the case with that film, that they
hmm
just had a lot of problems, seeing individual Africans having their individual stories.
hmm
They have them like a group identity as opposed to individual identities. And even the individuals, they think that they're creating individuals, but they really aren't. They're just kind of caricatures.
Yeah, it's kind of like the line from the Book of Mormon where they sing the song Africa says, Africans are Africans, but we are Africa, So,
Hmm.
okay, the next
There
one
you
on
go.
the list is from 1990, and this one is kind of easy, and that's Dances with Wolves.
Yeah, that is quintessential white savior there. I mean, they ate that up in Hollywood.
hmm
You know, I
Uh,
mean, if you go back, how many other decades to what is it? What's the other one? Man Called Horse.
oh, yeah.
Same thing.
hmm
Um,
Even the Dustin Hoffman film.
Little Big Man.
a
Yeah.
little big man. He wasn't really a savior. He was kind of like a screw up.
hmm
The only person he saved was his, quote unquote grandfather.
hmm
Because he really couldn't stop all the other stuff. But he did just tell, um, what's his name? What's Custer? He just told Custer, yeah, you did all. He couldn't even kill Custer. He was not. He just was not up to it. Again, he's just a screw up. But he did
Mhm.
tell him, there's not, a bunch of women and children. You know, you got a bunch of Sioux braves out there, and they're gunning for you. So all he did was just say the thing that was going to happen when that it did happen. He said, did this thing, you were the elderly people and children and women, but this is not who you're up against today.
Mhm.
Well,
And the other
and
thing about Dances with Wolves that I thought was like, okay, this was just a little bit too much on the spot is, of course, when he decides to live with these people and decides to, to look for a mate and stuff. Who did we go to? The one other white person in this whole in the whole Great Plains and stuff. So.
yeah, and see, isn't that an interesting thing? Because that's why they love it so much. You know, it's that you have this, it's kind of like a Shogun of the Wild West, right?
Mhm.
Where the white male goes into this place and then becomes, part of them. But instead of them having a native woman to be the guide, the Beatrice, instead, it is an Anglo woman who had, gone there previously.
Hmm.
And so, that is, I think, more palatable to them than, let's say, the Shogun, the previous one, iteration of it, where he goes and he meets the woman, and she's the Japanese woman that he who becomes his Beatrice, his guide into this new culture. So that is, but again, it is the same thing, is it not? You know, he comes in, he's going to take over this position and lead and blah blah blah. So to do better than the people who were there who knew the rules and standards or whatever. So again, this is the their fantasy, their mythology, and Hollywood loves it, and they
Yeah.
run it all the time. And the thing is, the thing's insane to me is when they say if they write something like this, it's good drama. But
Hmm.
you write something like this with black characters or woman characters, oh, it's just wish fulfillment. Why is it wish fulfillment for us and not wish fulfillment for them? Not like they actually did any of that stuff. Well,
Yeah.
it's, it's
Yeah.
very interesting that differentiation and how it is that other people's desires are viewed as that their um, fantasies are valid and other people's fantasies are invalid.
Hmm.
They're all fantasies. What makes
Yeah.
one more or less valid than the other?
And one other thing that I thought about this thing that was something that they don't mention, but the fact is that I don't know, I don't remember how the can't think of the actress's name, but she was Battlestar Galactica. She was president, but I'm not sure how she became a member of their group,
Oh,
and
Mary McDonald.
yeah, and I don't know how long she'd been there with them,
Oh
but
no.
the fact that she has not, uh, nobody has decided to settle down with her until he gets there. It kind of makes it look like she was his reward for coming there or something.
Hmm, interesting. I mean, do we see that as a trope in other white savior films of that sort? What is the one? I keep saying it all the time and I keep forgetting the name of it because I never read it, but it's the comic book about the guy in Mars.
Oh, Life on Mars.
No, it's a comic book and it's like Tarzan and Mars. I don't know what the
Oh,
name of it
John
is.
Carter of
John
Mars.
That's it,
Carter
John
on Mars.
Carter. Yes, that same type of thing, isn't it? You know,
Yeah,
and
pretty much. Yeah.
Another Edgar Rice Burroughs special.
yeah, and that concept of you go to some foreign land and there and there you conquer those who have already been there and you were raised up by the oppressed, and because you represent justice and right and good and blah blah blah. But yeah, this concept that certain individuals have of themselves, and I like to call them the boy's life
Mhm.
um, stories. That the damsels are in distress and the natives are looking for a leader, and here I am, and I didn't finish fifth grade, and here I'm king.
Mhm. Yeah, but that and the yeah, that that I can do that. I can just straighten out all your problems, even though I just got here 10 minutes ago.
Right,
So it's the
right.
equivalent of somebody coming to your house and rearranging your furniture. Say, okay, now this room is good and stuff.
Yeah,
Like so.
exactly. And so, but I had it the way I wanted it.
Yeah,
And so, well, no, the way you had it was not the right way.
and also the things that happen with these things is you come to a place that you just discovered, like people landed on the East Coast and said, "Look, I discovered America," even though you guys have been living here for 10,000 years. But hey,
Hmm. Yeah,
They liked
now,
it so much they named the continents after someone else.
yeah,
yeah. There we go. There we go. I think
now,
that's what's problematic with this. And the problem is that it's like life imitating fiction that people believe somehow is fact.
hmm
That this is the way the world should be or has been. And I think that's what's problematic.
yeah,
That it leads people to believe that this is something they should be aspiring to. I said, but not, not even like I'm listening to what these people are saying and say, well, that's really cool. Let me help, do what I can. No, I will lead you now. You don't have the ability to lead yourselves or to not be oppressed except through my hand. So that's always, been a big issue with these tropes as well.
hmm yeah. Now there was one movie that they listed on another list where they were on the same subject. They were listing other movies, and there was one that I said, "Well, let me think about this in a little bit." And the one that they listed as another white savior movie was Glory.
Glory.
So I had to squint a little bit, and I just said, "Well, now where do you draw the line between white savior and white participant?" Because
Or reality.
yeah, because
I
the
mean,
story
it
was
was a
about.
reality that
Hmm
black um, people didn't get to be generals.
hmm
They didn't get to be officers. In the military. That's what happened, and it was his job to go down there and do this. He didn't do this thing because he liked or loved or didn't like or loved, black people. He did it because he was a soldier, and that
hmm
is his job. Those were
Yeah.
his orders, and he followed said orders. What's he gonna do? Run out? Say, I'm not going there. They're gonna go in by themselves. No,
hmm
that's his job. So I
Yeah.
think that it's incorrect for them to consider the story in that way because that's just reality.
hmm
He's not white savior. That's just what happens.
Yeah.
And just told a story about how the thing happened. Black people were not in those roles. Black people were not running the show. And but these men, despite the fact they knew they'd be almost walking, they did know that they were walking to certain death.
hmm
All of them knew that this was a necessary thing they had to do in order to save, I mean, for the black people, of course, to save people who are like me, and the white guys thinking, to save the nation. You know,
hmm
we aren't at that point yet that we get to save nations. We have to save ourselves and people that look like us.
And another reality that is that although they did accept black soldiers into the Union Army, that a lot of the generals would not employ them. And one of the
Hmm.
ironies is that William Sherman, who who was kind of fanatic. That's probably why they named their tank after him. That he felt that the Confederates should be punished for leaving the Union because he looked at them as traitors, and he had said that in his march toward the sea with burning Atlanta along the way, that South Carolina was where treason started, and that's where he was going to end it. But he did not let any of the black soldiers that were under his command do anything other than remedial work and stuff. They could be cooks, they could tend to animals and stuff. And he was quoted as saying that a black soldier could stop a bullet just as well as a white soldier, but maybe not as well as a sandbag. So,
I don't know what that means.
oh, well, that meant that he said, that if you just needed somebody to stop a bullet, they could do that. But as far as giving them weapons, no, I'm not going to do that.
Mm. Well, there we go.
Yeah. But anyway,
Um,
so two things before we go, as we've exhausted this list and everything. Do you think any of these movies could be forgiven their shortcomings because they were trying to do something that they thought was good, but they really didn't? They just didn't know what was happening. And this is why you need to have diverse writers' rooms so you can get another opinion. Somebody says, wait a minute, just about that.
I
Um,
think when you say that, I don't know what the second part of the question is, but again, the first part of the question, and watch it, I think that it is impossible because they aren't trying to make it into anything other than the type of film that a certain peoples like. We want to be the hero. We want to be the people that everybody loves. That's us.
well, yeah, that's true. And of course, it's something that, it lets you pat yourself on the back for what you do.
Exactly. And they don't want to change. They don't want to go in the writer's room and
Hmm.
say, well, you should probably have some of these other individuals, show some agency and make some decisions. Oh no, but that would ruin the fantasy for the
Yeah.
person for whom the fantasy is being written. It is no different than the conversation that Otto and I had regarding the show The Principal. I mean, the vice principals. Remember that show, Vice Principals?
Hmm.
And I don't know if you ever watched it, but in Vice
Yeah.
Principals, they had the black vice principal that came in and got the job. I guess she's the principal, got the principal's job before either of the two white males. And then one of them went about the process of seriously undermining him. And then the other one kind of helped him with seriously undermining him, going to the point of, putting liquor, giving her liquor without her knowledge, knowing that she was an alcoholic.
Hmm.
And, then she got drunk and did all these crazy things, offensive things. And after it was over, that was at the end of the season. And the new season was coming up. And I was like, well, I want to go see the next season because I want to see how she gets back at these guys that are doing this. And I was saying, that's not going to happen because
Hmm.
this is not even handed show and going back and forth tit for tat between sides that, are equal able combatants. This is a white man's fantasy.
Hmm.
That is the end of her. And I mean, to say, in fact, that this woman who is I guess she was a doctor or something. I mean, she
Yeah.
may have had her doctorate or whatever. And her husband is like some two-bit thug off the street. And the children act like they're straight out of central casting for Claudine. You
Hmm.
know, what in the heck is going on here? But
Now,
again, hmm
now that was something we had talked about a little bit earlier, talking about Cool Runnings, which was
hmm
on the list. And so, as the question is, do you think that at some point the writers say that because this is a comedy, it's okay to do these stereotypes and have this kind of behavior that if it happened in real life, we're talking about multiple lawsuits once it came to light that you did this, and they say, well, because it's a comedy, we can get away with it because it's a comedy.
right.
Everybody's exaggerated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that, yeah, maybe you can say that, but who is exaggerated and who is not?
Hmm.
And in which way are they exaggerated, right?
Hmm. And there's always the actor's vanity part that you can always say, well, look, but look how many lines you get. Look how many scenes you're in.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a good
But
thing,
there was bad scenes, you know. And so
Yeah.
and I jumped in the middle and you were saying that you're, I mean, you were asking your question, and I hope I haven't, taken you off your
Oh, no,
thought
no.
process. But
Mhm.
I think there's no going to the writers' room. There's no changing it. It's a formula, and they like it, and they're not going to ever change that.
Yeah.
Plus, Hollywood will always say, we couldn't find any.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing
Of
that we
course,
were talking
those.
Mm-hmm.
all of the school movies that you think they would have somebody who actually was in the situation or the person who they were writing about as a consultant to say, well, this is what really happened. This is what, this is. And, that something like this never happened. The kids were not that bad or, whatever. The parents were more involved than what you say.
Yeah, I think one of the problems is that again, people are myopic, right? If you have a teacher who's telling the story, they are going to tell the story, and they are going to tell it in such a way that they are seen as, brilliant and heroic. And these children, these terrible, horrible children, that I changed, into, individuals who are fit for society. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think like, something like Dangerous Minds, if they, which was on one of the lists,
Mm-hmm.
you have, I come in, I want to tell you, how it is that you should be. I'm tough and rough, and I'm not scared of you, kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but I don't know. Again, this is someone's fantasy, and because it is, it gets picked up. It's a
Mm-hmm.
fantasy of the type of person that they think is going to buy their movies.
Yeah. Okay. So the
Mhm.
second part of the question was, can you think of anything that had a diverse cast and that did not fall into the white savior trope, that everybody's point of view was respected or something like that. I remember there was a scene once in Sports Center, which was one of Aaron Sorkin's early movies and everything, and there was one scene where one of the characters had said that he felt like he was the white Rosa Parks because of something he had stood up for. And Robert Guillaume, who was his boss in the movie, and later in the episode pulled him aside and said, "As long as you live, don't you ever say something like that again, because you're not."
Mhm. Yeah, you didn't put yourself on the line. You didn't do any of those things, and
Mm-hmm.
you again undermine her sacrifice
Mm-hmm.
by attaching it to some thing that you did,
Mm-hmm.
and
There.
I think that, I mean, in that situation where someone gets to correct them, it's not
Mm-hmm.
so that happens, with his self evolution, but someone tells him, look, that's
Mm-hmm.
wrong,
Yeah.
and that it's a person, of the culture that has been offended by the statement. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's important.
Yeah.
And again, we have a lot of films where, some other person other than the people who are offended say something. But it's almost like when you have been offended, you're not allowed to tell someone that you're offended. You're
Mm-hmm.
whining if you say you've been offended. But if a white man comes in and says, well, Penelope was offended, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Penelope can't say, I was offended. Now, she's just an angry black woman. She's just telling her she's
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
offended. But it doesn't make what they said any less offensive, is that I'm not allowed to say it.
Yeah. And something that came up in one of the early ones on this book, on this list, is of course the Green Book. And even before the subject guy's family had pointed out all of the inaccuracies they had done, and said, well, wait a minute, this didn't exactly happen. Not didn't just
Mhm.
happen like this, didn't happen, period. Is there a lot of people that had criticisms about this move for some of the liberties it was taken? So it's not
Mhm.
that there aren't people who don't notice these things as they go along with. And even when I think it won Best Picture, and everybody was kind of puzzled by that, said, how did that happen? So
Mm.
you
And
can,
the writers also didn't understand the significance of the Green Book.
yeah.
So the actual document,
Yeah. And the
or
way, because they did not understand what it was, they wrote something that was wholly inappropriate.
Hmm.
Mhm. I think
And
with
and
another
again,
title, people might have been a little less harsh.
I think no, I don't think that they would have been less harsh, because the whole concept that every hotel that you stop at that has black people in it or attached to it is going to be some broke down honky tonk. That's
Mm-hmm.
offensive.
Yeah, I
I mean
remember.
but that's what they believed
Mhm,
about black people when they travel. Well, you just don't want to travel here because the places you stop have to stop are
Mm-hmm.
nasty places. No, the places they stopped were very nice places.
Mm-hmm.
They're set up for other black people to go there. The problem is it's inconvenient when you have to be, somewhere that's 20 miles away, and you can't be there and stay there to do the thing for which you have been hired, because you can't get a hotel room because
Mm-hmm.
they don't allow black people at those particular hotels.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it was offensive and based on their beliefs about why it was that black people had problems, not because our
Mm-hmm.
hotels were bad, that we wanted to go to their lovely, lofty hotels.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's because it was inconvenient for us to do business and get to where we needed to get to. You don't have to be in the position where you have to have multiple drivers because you got to drive all day and drive all night because there's nowhere for you to stop.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
And there was it. So I think, according to the little ticker down here on the side, I think we are near the end. So, does anybody else have anything they wanted to add, or did they have a particular movie that wasn't listed on the list that you said, "Yeah, this one was really bad. This sucked."
Well, I know it's on the list, and I wasn't there at the beginning, but Avatar, that is so offensive to me. That is the top, one of the top ones on my list. And the reason why for me is because again it's Dances with Wolves in Space, but
Mm-hmm.
also the fact is for all the voice acting that they did for those um, Navi and the other people, that all the Navi's voices were voiced by black people, and everyone else is voiced by not black people.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
it's kind of, well, why do you think that that is an appropriate thing to do?
yeah, and that's one of the things I guess they didn't explain exactly how did they make that choice
Right,
because these were imaginary creatures.
right,
Could have gotten anybody to say their lines and everything,
exactly.
but it's kind of like it's an inside joke that you have that you use actors of color. And also the thing that I noticed immediately about it is that all of the people who were on the side of the Navi were all of the non-Navi characters were all minorities
Hmm.
or women
Yeah,
or some other marginalized person. So it's
right.
kind of like it was saying that there's marginalized people in space and stuff. This is I don't know if this is
Yeah.
their advantage or something that they said they were trying to show that maybe that was their simple thing of saying, well, they're going to show how all the white folks are bad or something like that. But that was just a little
Two on the
obvious,
nose, right?
you know.
That was it. That was the only one I had to comment
Yeah.
about.
I'm worried about Wicked, but both actresses are minority actresses. But I'm curious to see how it's going to play out with the
Well,
Wicked Witch being played by a black woman.
they just released a new trailer, and so based on the new trailer and stuff, I'm kind of optimistic about it or something, but it would be interested if they say the thing is they're going to try to somebody's going to say, well, the fact that she was green meant that this is that and the other. And I have to admit, in the other trailers, I did not see any other people of any color in the rest of the trailer. So maybe when
Well,
when
there's another black woman playing her sister. Andrea Grande is Latina.
and the dude
Um,
Michelle,
yeah, and there's an Asian young man in it.
yeah,
So it's going to be interesting. I'm just
yeah,
curious. And I haven't seen what is it? Killers of the
Flower Moon.
Mm.
Flower Moon. Yeah.
But I
I'm
heard that it
nervous.
was very disturbing.
I'm worried because it's from Scorsese's point of view rather than the Native Americans telling their story.
Well, they said that it's kind of like they do switching back and forth. between points of view. But my concern is that the whole point of calling it Killers of the Flower Moon basically tells you that it's from their point of view. It's about the killers of the flower moon, not about resistance
Not
of the
about
flower
Flower
moon,
Moon. Yeah.
death of the flower moon, or killers of the flower moon. You're talking about them, why they did it, if they did it, whatever. But
Mhm.
it is about the killers, not necessarily the people who were killed.
Mhm.
So already they're kind of telling you.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that's it for this evening. So we thank you for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you next week where we will have more discussions from the Otherhood.
All
Happy
right.
full moon.
Yay! Happy graduation week, all
Yeah.
you Philadelphia students.
Graduation season. Yeah.
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 All right.
Congratulations, not only to the graduates, but to the people who helped them graduate.
Yep. That's right. Those who made it possible. Okay. Good night.
Good
Good.
night.
Okay. So we hit end stream.
Hmm.
Okay. And it said end stream, and then it comes second time. So we hit it and